I'd like to introduce Dale Colston, who is our principal librarian here at the Newark Public Library, to come up and open the program. Please give your attention to the podium as we begin. Thank you.
Good evening and welcome to the Newark Public Library. If this is your first time, welcome. If you've been here before, welcome back. It's great to see all of you. My name is Dale Colston and I'm the librarian for this space, the James Brown African American Room. As many of you know, this space was originally located on the first floor from about 1992 until last year when it was moved up here. It's named in honor of the late James Library Brown, a librarian, poet, activist, and influencer who was instrumental in making sure that the library seek and maintain books and resources and present programs examining and celebrating the African American experience and whose legacy has gathered us here tonight to celebrate. Before we start the program, there are a few housekeeping items I'd like to mention. The restrooms are on this floor, are located outside the double doors to the right. Additional restrooms are on the first floor. Also, we kindly ask that you silence your cell phones and other electronic devices during the program. Should you need to make a phone call, we ask that you exit this area through the double doors and continue your conversation in the atrium. We thank you in advance. And now, it is my great pleasure to introduce to you a Newark cultural ensemble that shares the music of African American experience, Return to the Source with Junius Williams. They will lead us in singing Lift Every Voice and Sing. All those who are able, would you please stand? Thank you.
Till earth and heaven ring with the harmony of liberty, and let our rejoicing rise. The listening sky, and let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Roll, roll, roll. Sing a song, for love the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun, our day begun. March on till victory. Till victory's won. Oh, sing a song. For love the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song. Hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun. Till victory is won. Till victory is won.
I'm Jeffrey Trezak, Director of the Newark Public Library. And first of all, I want to say thank you to Junius and Return to the Source for that fantastic performance. So thank you very much. I want to thank all of you who were able to join us here this evening. This was a long time coming. and I'm very pleased that we were able to pull this all off for the community here. There are a few VIPs that I'd like to acknowledge before getting into the formal program. First and foremost, our Mayor Ross Baraka. Thank you for joining us here this evening. Council President Mildred Crump, thank you as well. And Councilwoman LaMonica McGyver, thank you for joining us too. Lieutenant Governor Sheila Oliver had hoped to be here this evening, but sends her regrets, and we hope to see her here soon for another event. I want to thank you again for all of your support. It means a great deal to us here at the Newark Public Library. We are also joined by some of our trustees. Dr. Tim Christ. Tim, in the back of the room, thank you. Dr. Lauren Wells, I saw earlier as well, thank you. Rosemary Steinbaum, thank you. And special thanks as well to trustee Tom Alrotz. Tom is also a former director of the Newark Public Library, and in fact, he was the individual who promoted James Brown to the principal librarian for Black Studies. So we owe a debt of gratitude to Tom, who's with us here this evening too. The dedication, I think, is a fitting testimony to the impact that James Brown had and continues to have on our community, and I appreciate that you've all braved this cold and possibly snowy January night to come out to celebrate the man and his impressive legacy. I'm sure that James is smiling on us now. Unfortunately, I did not have the pleasure of knowing him personally, but I have had a chance to hear from many of you who did. And therefore, I'm going to keep my comments brief. What I've learned, I think, from speaking to many of you and to many of his admirers is that he was a much beloved member of the Newark community and the library community as well. He was known as the People's Librarian for his tireless encouragement of scholarship on the African and African American experience and a desire to make it possible for all to avail themselves of literature and research material reflecting the legacy of his people. There are a few people in the audience tonight that I would like to acknowledge for their generous donations to the James Brown African American Room reference material. But first of all, none of this would have been possible without the capital improvement funding that we received from the City of Newark, which both the mayor and city council members were instrumental in helping to make available. So thank you again to the City of Newark. The J-Bar collections have also recently received a handful of truly significant in-kind donations, which have helped to increase both the volume and value of the collections here. And I'd like to take a few moments just to acknowledge a few of the donors who are here with us this evening. The in-kind donations enable the library to acquire, expand, and augment a comprehensive collection of artifacts, stories, and personal narratives that help keep the traditions and histories of our community alive. First, Jose Velasquez Luyanda, who's a founding member of our Hispanic Resource Information Center, who last year donated his personal collection to the library. Jose? Yes, thank you. Gracias por su colección y por su apoyo también. Y lo siento por mi español. The NAACP, who this evening is represented by Deborah Gregory. The NAACP chartered in 1914, the Newark NAACP chartered in 1914. Deborah, I saw you, oh, there you are, thank you, behind Jose. Donated the minutes of the 1920 meetings to the library, and they're now located in the hallway just outside in the display case for you to view on your way out or throughout the evening. Junius Williams, of course, for his performance, but also for donating his personal library and also his personal research papers as well. So thank you for that very generous contribution. And Greg Banks, a noted artist and native of Newark, who donated the beautiful portrait of James Brown, which is on display in the back of the room as you enter. It will be added to the James Brown African American Room collection in the near future. Greg, you are, yes, in the back of the room. Thank you, thank you. And I'd also like to acknowledge and recognize Charles Carson, who along with Dale Colston created the beautiful banners that you see in the room this evening, who remind us of the tremendous, there in the back, thank you. Charles, you snuck in, I didn't see you come in. They remind us of the tremendous literary contributions that each of these individuals have made to the world. I also want to acknowledge the staff. Dale Colston, of course, is the principal librarian responsible for the room, but we've also in the past year promoted or reassigned or continued to support other staff in the James Brown African American Room as well. And I think they're all here with us this evening. Isidra Myricks, also in the back of the room, thank you. Alicia Grant, and Lawrence Singleton, who's been a long-standing member of the James Brown Room. The library owes a huge debt of gratitude to James Brown and his efforts to ensure that Newark Public Library advanced the creation of a collection containing stories, essays, histories, and art that was representative of the genius, creativity, passion, and struggle of the African American community in Newark. His life and accomplishments are truly worth celebrating, and I'm so pleased that you've all joined us here tonight for such a momentous occasion. So thank you all. I also want to acknowledge that Jeremy Johnson, trustee, has also joined us as well. Thank you, Jeremy. And Gwen Moten, also from the city. Thank you, Gwen, for coming out this evening. So we have a lot to cover in the next hour, so I'm going to keep it moving and introduce our first guest, who I'm in awe of his unrelenting dedication and unyielding desire to create a Newark that embraces new ventures and growth opportunities while also continuing to cherish and nurture the cultural significance and robust heritage that makes Newark such a treasure. He is, in fact, one of the reasons why I came to Newark. So please help me to welcome to the podium a man who really needs no introduction, our Mayor, Ross Baraka.
Thank you. So I'm glad to see the room filled, which it was a little bit more filled, but I'm glad that everyone is out this evening. I want to thank Jeffrey Treziak for the work that he's doing here at the library. If this is a sign of what's to come, we want to say thank you. Reopening and rededicating the room to James Brown, who was weaved into my life like many other people, being dragged down to the library as a child, and many other cultural events that were happening, and seeing him there and in and around, and all of the voices and faces and people that you remember. It is a pleasure because a lot of folks don't know who James Brown was, right? And I think of him the same way I think of many other people who made a way to Newark, either on their own volition or because they were forced to get out of the place they were at, somewhere in the South, made Newark their home, and struggled and fought hard that power changed hands and that our lives were represented equally and we were treated like human beings. James Brown dedicated, almost 30 years of his life to this institution. He wasn't just an academic. He didn't like black people for academic reasons. He was deeply involved in the struggles of our people here and wanted other people to know about that, and more importantly, to document that and make sure that there are other people behind them would be able to read about that and understand life of real Americans. It's important to know that African American history is American history. It's important to know that James Brown knew that and understood that that we were not just worthy of some kind of segregated part of the stacks or some room here and there. He understood that our history is interwoven in the history of this country from its start to its finish. How ugly and beautiful and sassy that it may be, it is factual that this country cannot escape the fingerprints or the footprints or the blues of African American people who found their way to these shores, not of their own will, but you stuck with us now. So it's a pleasure to be here, and all of this stuff is surreal to me, and I'm gonna take my seat. It's surreal because actually it's something that I'm used to sitting in the audience, and maybe my dad would be up here talking about James Brown, or maybe my mother or somebody like that. But to have me up here talking about it, I feel almost unqualified to do that, right? To talk about a man who I saw actually do work in this city as a kid and not fully understanding what that meant or felt or what the impact would be for me as a grown man. And the only thing that I could say to him and all of the people that knew him and grew up with him and fought with him is thank you. I thank you too, Mr. Trzeziak, for understanding that this needed to happen, that this is important, that we need to expand this, and somehow we need to find out how to make sure our kids know who James Library Brown was here in the city of Newark and what he was trying to accomplish here. Who knows, maybe one day we could be able to compete with the Schomburg. God bless you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm having lunch tomorrow with somebody from the Schomburg, so I'm working on that. I must admit that I was quite shocked when I learned that our next guest was not born in Newark, as she is everywhere in Newark, and everyone in the city has at least one, if not more, Mildred Crump stories. But Council President Crump was indeed born in Detroit and remained in Detroit through her graduation from Wayne State University. Many of you probably don't know that I lived in Detroit for 8 years, and in fact, I was the Associate Dean of Libraries at Wayne State University, so we share a common background, I think. She then worked as a Braille teacher in Michigan and New Jersey. She received her master's in public administration from Rutgers Newark. She'll go down in history for being the city's first African-American councilwoman and the first female president of the Newark City Council. An accomplished lifelong community activist, she's been a strong advocate for women, children, senior citizens, the disabled, working families, and those in need, and has worked relentlessly to ensure that voices are heard and their needs are addressed. Although Newark may not be her official birthplace, it is certainly the place she calls home, and Newarks are all the more fortunate for it. It's my extreme honor to welcome my friend, mentor, and council president, Mildred Crump, to share a few words.
Most of you who call me Mildred are my friends, so you don't have to stand. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone. James is looking down on us, Junius. You know, he's saying, glory, hallelujah. They've actually fulfilled his dream. Many of you do not know that James was one of my dearest friends. We became friends because of some personal issues. And Henrietta Parker, I don't know if she's in the room, and I became James's, his non-professional nurses. And you get to know a lot about a person when they're going through and experiencing difficulties. Well, James was the kind of person who never allowed anyone else to feel sorry for him. And because of that, he helped me as a person to develop strength, a purpose, and determination. We spent many a moment talking about the past, the present, but most important, the future of the library system. I'd like to give him full credit for the concept of having neighborhood libraries. How many of you use the libraries? Not just the downtown, but the ones in your community. We got to know people. It became up close and personal. And so James, the imprint that he has left on my life will never go away. And I want to thank our director, our incredible director of the library, all of the members of the board. Some of you are here, and maybe I'll have a chance to chat with some of you about some of the good old times. I am certainly hoping that James Brown is going to live forever, not because physically he's here, but because of the way he was able to change people's lives. He used to come to, along with myself, he used to come to the Weequahic branch on Clinton Avenue. And by the time we left, he was taking 5 and 6 books out that he wanted to read. And you know what happened? The youngsters who were watching him would say, "Mr. Brown, are you going to read all those books?" And he said, "Yes, and you should too." So his influence is still with us. His ability to bring others to a point of reference in their lives where information is so important. Thank you, Jeffrey and Linda, and just the whole, I don't want to miss anybody's name. And certainly to the mayor's administration. He is himself a former educator. No, you're never a former educator. You know what? So, you all agree with that? You're never former. You're either I or you're not. But that's what he was. He will leave a mark of history on the great city of Newark. Thank you so much for giving me a chance to share my impressions of my friend, James Brown.
Thank you, Council President Crump, for your inspiring words and your continuing support for the library. We appreciate you greatly. As has been mentioned, James Brown has had a remarkable impact on many people's lives, and his vision is still thriving this day with the creation of the Friends of the James Brown African American Room, or JBAR, as we like to refer to it. We will hear from 2 of the founding members of the Friends of JBAR, McDonald Carter, yes, and Linda Caldwell Epps. Linda Caldwell Epps will share her personal stories about how James Brown has impacted her life and the impact he had on this community. But first, it is my pleasure to introduce to you author, poet, performer, teacher, and artist, Jasmine Mans. I'm sure you will find her performance to be captivating and thought-provoking. Please give a warm welcome to Jasmine Mans.
I didn't know Mr. James Brown, but I got a blessing about a year ago when I received an email from Maisie Card, and I was asked to come here to facilitate the poetry initiative. And I got to facilitate that initiative inside of the James Brown Room. So I got the pleasure of hosting Black and brown kids from all over Newark and showing them poetry and reminding them every day that if you go in the stacks, that every book that got 811 on it will be poetry. And so that has been the most gratifying experience of my life, to be in Newark and to work with students who look like me and to then call their mamas and to tell them that they will be home on time. They just stayed a little late at their poetry class. So it's been a blessing, and I'm incredibly grateful. Thank you. Dear First Lady, I watched as my 4-year-old cousin sat in the mirror, placed my grandmother's pearls around her neck and said, "Jazz, do I look like Michelle Obama?" This little girl who does not know how to say Rice Krispie or macaroni and cheese properly said your name as if it existed on her long list of heroes in between Snow White and Santa Claus. My little cousin does not know about Jim Crow. She does not know your view on the healthcare reform, your Princeton education, nor can she point to Chicago on a map. But she knows black Barbie dolls in nap time, how to identify your face in a land filled of misrepresented women who share our skin color like a sequenced revolution. She knows your smile, Michelle. She knows the day that her mother jumped up and down crying, November 4th's black and red dresses, how to say African American better than her own first name. You prove that her identity belongs somewhere in this American dream. She knows that if she can find your face on the jumbled channels on television, there's a possibility she can stay up past her bedtime. You are everything her mother never got a chance to be. Post-traumatic slave syndrome breaking free, cover girls, beauty of the week, a love story sprinkled in an inaugural speech and someone she can mistake for her mommy. Do you know what that means? It means that she traded in her Dora the Explorer costume for a brooch of the American flag and a t-shirt with your husband's face on it. And for the first time, I could identify the revolution that would actually change this here world. And it is not in how many Barack and Martin comparisons we can make, but the idea of little boys jumping up and down on their beds with the American flag tied around their necks and actually believing that they can fly. It's in little girls with dreams and their grandmother's pearls. My little cousin, she does not know about the war in Iraq. She just wonders if Sasha and Malia like to hula hoop, and if you force them to eat their Flintstone vitamins too. I guess this poem is a thank you. Thank you for being a brown girl's dream come true, something tangible to look up to. Because I know that our skin color exists on timelines of women who had craters engraved in their backs, stretch marks similar to maps of underground railroads, grandmothers who couldn't afford all the ingredients to the recipe of the American pie, women who laid down their lives shredded with chips and cracks in their spines, dying to inject more estrogen in man's kind, creating tradition under the idea that if I can't afford my daughter the world, a college degree, or at least a decent meal tonight, I will wrap my grandmother's pearls around her neck like a gravity-stricken halo, and I will whisper in her ear, "Baby, if I can't, you will." She did. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Okay. First, I want to thank the Newark Public Library Board of Trustees and Jeffrey on behalf of the Friends of J-Bar for having the insight to engage the Friends in the process of designing this fantastic and great space. Give them a hand, please. The mission of the Friends of J-Bar is to support the sustainability and development of the J-Bar, James Brown African American Room at the Newark Public Library, named in the honor of the principal librarian, who you just found out about, whose insistence of inclusion resulted in the creation of a literary collection and programming focused on people of African descent. The members of the Friends consist of a collective of very proud, long-time Newark community elders. I did not personally know Mr. Brown. Ms. Epps, the chair of J-Bar, will come and share her thoughts with him. However, from what I know of him, we share the love and the passion for the Newark Public Library and books. Perhaps for me, by the default, because we didn't have a television when I grew up. So my brothers and I would walk up from Scudder Holmes to Hayes Library, the local library, to visit, to check. We would go there to let people check their phones today. Books and the universities have a long history in the African culture. As far back as the University of Timbuktu, Benin, Mali, that were open to the community, not just the elite. Some say as far back as 10,000 years ago in South Africa, 3,500 years before Egypt, and 3,500 years before the Chinese culture. Books, manuscripts, were written with parchment paper and binders similar to soft-cover books today. Later, there were letter accounts of chattel slavery, Jim Crow, convict leasing. Then books by the authors during the Harlem Renaissance, civil rights and Black Power movements, up to and including today. The Newark Public Library's mission is to transform lives and strengthen communities through innovative services, stimulating programs, and inspiring collections. The Friends of J-Bar want to ensure that the Newark Public Library collection continues to include the good books from the great Black American and African diaspora, institutionalizing the transformation of the entire Newark and surrounding community, provides stimulating programs and innovative service to and about the Black community and the African diaspora. John Dana Cotton, which you all know, with a little help from me, of course, stated, many still do not see how unique the thing the public library is. Public meaning concerning or affecting the community or the people, the public good, the collective. It's not spying on you or seeking to make a profit or shape public opinion and perception, nor run ads like some software companies, you know. The library is the most democratic, universal institution ever devised. It is by all, for all, to be used as each and everyone may choose, from the homeless person to the scholar. It draws no line of politics, wealth, birth, or education. All can learn here without rules or teachers, save as they make their own rules and choose their own teachers. A collection of good books and people to use them, what a university it is. Nothing that is human is foreign to it. Lastly, I want to invite you to become members of J-Bar. But if not, you're welcome to make contributions to the library in our name. You can also leave J-Bar in your will or your estate. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. And welcome to the grand opening of the James Brown African American Room. I think it's a knockout. I hope you like it as well. Okay. More than being thrilled with the look of our new home, I'm excited, especially tonight, about the feel of it. For the feel of it is what would resonate with James. How many of you in here had the pleasure of knowing him? Quite a few of you. Then you know what I mean about James and feeling a place, and the feeling that he would put into a place by his mere presence. One of those years, somewhere close to 1991, I'm not sure whether it was 92 or 93, my family took a trip to Washington, D.C. for vacation that summer. And for the first, we had gone many times, but for the first time we went to visit the Vietnam War Memorial. Something happened to me that I wasn't prepared for. And maybe a minute or two into looking at the names on the wall, I thought of James. I also thought of Avery Presley, who was a childhood friend of mine. And for the first time, I started comparing the two of them. They were feelers. They were compassionate men. They were artists. James survived. Avery didn't. Unfortunately, he graduated from high school in June, and he was killed somewhere in Vietnam in September, so he didn't have long. But I cried for both of them, my sons not understanding why the tears really just would not stop. Part of it was because we had just recently lost James. I was crying for James, I was crying for Avery, but I was crying for all the young men that I knew that had no business on that battlefield and who gave of their lives. But James and Avery were very similar. They both felt keenly. They loved easily. They treated all with a gentle but serious kindness that could make you feel really, really high or really, really low when you messed up, right? Just a word would give you that feeling. War is not pretty. And they were both beautiful people. And I kept thinking of how I'm seeing all that ugliness, what it must have done to both of them. So for James, he came out of it successful. He went to Rutgers, achieved 2 degrees, came to work at this library, and brought so much to so many. And I'm so happy that we have dedicated this space to him this evening. I first encountered James about 20 feet from where I am standing right now. It was right over there by that desk. The year, 1976. The occasion, I was a first-year graduate student at Seton Hall University in the American Studies program, a newcomer to Newark and a newlywed. I was taking a course that freshman year in the coverage of post-World War II and the Cold War in the newspapers, and I had a paper to write, and I had no idea what I was going to say. So I was sitting in here, probably scratching my head and looking miserable and awful, because I remember that's the way I was feeling. And I felt, you know how you can feel someone's eyes on you? I felt James looking at me. And I looked at him, and I looked down in my books again, and I looked up, and he was looking at me again. And I looked down, and then I looked this way, and he was looking at me again. And he finally came over to me, and he said, "You see, you know why I'm here. I'm a librarian, don't I look like one? I'm here to help you. So why do you keep looking at me and not asking for any help?" And I said, "I didn't see you looking at me, but I did. I was looking at him, I saw him looking at me, and I knew he knew that I was looking at, he was looking at." And he said, "You saw me looking at you." I said, "Yeah, I did, but my parents told me not to speak to strangers." And we, especially strange men, and we both started laughing. And from that moment on, he became my first Newark friend. I moved here in October. I think that was like the first week in November. So fast forward 18 months. I'm now in the second year of graduate school, working on another paper. Struggling with the topic because I was taking this paper on 19th century English literature, and I had to do something connected with Moby Dick, and I had no idea what to do. Of course, James came up with an idea. He told me about Crispus Attucks being a whaler, and we went all sorts of places. And he found all sorts, not only gave me a topic, but found all sorts of books for me to read. And remember, this is 1978 at this point. Not too many Black authors are published. I don't know how he found the literature that he found, but he did. I'm about 8 months pregnant. Weather is bad. There's snow. We had just had a major snowfall. He said, "Let me help you carry those books outside to your car." I'm driving a little Volkswagen Beetle. As soon as we got to the car, my feet flew out from underneath me, and I fell flat on my back. James, anyone, and there are people in this room who knew me and who knew me 40 years ago and who knew what I'd look like pregnant, it wasn't pretty. But I fell flat on my back. He said, "Don't move, just stay there, let me go and get help." I said, "I'm okay, James." He said, "Don't move, I told you not to move, stay there, I'll go and get help." I said, "I'm cold, I'm wet, and I'm okay, I'm going to get up." We start arguing back and forth. He's strong-willed, I'm strong-willed. People come over, they think it's a lover's spat. They grab James, he says, "Get off of me." It's just a mess. But they were on him long enough for me to at least rise to my knees. And he finally gave up and he said, well, I won't tell you the name he called me, but basically he said, "Okay, you think you're so tough and you think you're so strong, get the hell on up then and go on about your business. I don't even want to have anything to do with you anymore." But that was That was James. There are many photos of him around the room, and there's that wonderful portrait of him. And he's never quite got a really big smile on his face. It's always sort of a smile and a smirk at the same time. If you know, go around and look at them. And that's really the way he was. He found happiness in everything, but he could also be critical of everything. Happiness, he could critique and be happy at the same time. And I think that that's what made him special. He embraced everyone, not for whom they were supposed to be, but for who he saw they were. And he could find something good to celebrate. And he could also tell you your faults, like he called me by that name, which is probably true. So he could do both at the same time. So I'm so happy that Anas Amat, the person who had the idea to found the Friends of the James Brown African American Room, called me to be part of this venture. I'm very grateful to her and to all of the friends who are in this room. If any of you are here, I wish you would stand so we could recognize you, friends of the James Brown African, board members and friends. Okay. Many, many thanks to you, and I hope that at our next event, we will have 3 times that many people standing up, because it's disgraceful that they were just that few. I'm grateful to all of you, but everyone in this room should tonight take out a membership and become a friend of the James Brown African American Room. Okay. As some of you have heard me say before, James knew hard times, but he knew how to define hard times, but he did not let hard times define him. A product of Jim Crow South, Northern oppression, the Vietnam massacre, his belief in the goodness of mankind did not falter. I could see him conversing with those who we might consider the least of us on important issues of the day. An impeccable dresser, he knew that dress did not necessarily define the person. And if you had a will to learn, he was there for you. His belief in the need for educated change was unshakable. And I share, as well as members of the esteemed and longest living African American institution, NAACP, share that same belief. So I would like Deborah Gregory, representing the NAACP, to stand up and be recognized once again. Okay. And I hope before all of you leave that you will take time to look at the beautifully preserved journal presented to the James Brown African American Room by the Newark chapter of the NAACP. The journal records meetings, minutes recorded in 1924 at Bethany Baptist Church. The Newark branch of the NAACP is one of the oldest in the country and should be recognized for their ability to stand forth all these years. It was founded in 1914, only 5 years after the national NAACP, so we got on board pretty early. Recent presidents of the Newark branch have included Keith Jones and Sally Carroll, and Deborah Smith Gregory is the 25th president, and we applaud her for having the foresight to bring that gift here. Okay. Historically, and I want us to be proud of the NAACP, which is why I'm taking more time than I should to tell you about it, because I hope you become members there too. Historically, the Newark branch has been the impetus behind major policy changes in the city. It led for the push for black police officers in Newark, and they led the call for suburban housing market for African Americans. And I'm proud to say again that my church, Bethany Baptist Church, has been a longtime supporter of the NAACP because it opened its doors to it in the very beginning. So I thank you, Deborah, and your branch on behalf of JBAR. And as I said, the journal will be prominently displayed here. So I encourage you to visit the Newark Public Library and the James Brown African American Room often. I encourage you to support both with your time and with your financial contributions. The world is getting more and more complex. Libraries know what their mission is. They know what they're supposed to do, and they do it well. We need spaces like this to maintain our humanity. No one else will do it for us. Thank you.
Thank you again to Jasmine, Linda, and Linda. Thank you. Thank you. Those of you who are interested in becoming friends or supporting the Friends of the James Brown African American Room, you can see my colleagues in the back. We have brochures, and they'll be there to help you. I see Drew waving now, and Tom. We have that there for you. It's been quite an evening, but we're not finished. We do have more music. Yes, Professor? Yes. Once again, Return to the Source with Junius Williams. Thank you.
Well, you better listen, my sisters and brothers, 'cause if you do, you will hear there are voices still calling across the years. And they're all crying across the ocean, and they're crying across the land, and they will till we all begun to understand that none of us are free. None of us are free. None of us are free. If one of us is chained, none of us are free. There are people still in darkness, and they just can't see the light. If you don't say it's wrong, then that says it's right. We got to try to be for each other. Let the brothers know that we care. Got to get the message, send it out loud and clear. That none of us are free. None of us are free. None of us are free. If one of us is chained, none of us are free. Swear this salvation really too hard to find. None of us can find it on our own. On our own. We've got to join together in spirit, heart, and mind, so that every soul who's suffering will know that we're not alone. None of us are free. None of us are free, y'all. None of us are free. If one of us is chained, none of us are free. None of us are free. Oh, no, no. None of us are free. My Lord. None of us are free. If one of us is chained, none of us are free. None of us are free. None of us are free. Oh, my Lord. None of us are free. If one of us is chained, none of us are free.
Do it again, from the top. All right.
If I could reach the stars, I'd pull one down for you. I'd shine it on the heart so you could see the truth. And this love I have inside is everything it seems. Oh yeah,
Oh yeah.
but for now I find it's only in my dreams. If I can change the world, I would be the sunlight in your universe. You would think my love was really something good, only if I could change the world, yeah, yeah. And if I could be queen, even for one day, I'd take you as my king. I'd have it no other way. And our love would rule this kingdom we have made. Oh yeah,
Oh, yeah.
Oh, till then I'll be a fool, wishing for the day when I can change the world. I would be the sunlight in your universe. You would think my love was something good, only if I could change, change the world, If I can change the world, I would be the sunlight in your universe. You would think my love was really something good, only if I could change the world, baby, if I could change the world, baby, if I could change the world, yeah. Play it, Juniors. If I can change the world, yeah, I would, yes, if I could change the world. Yes. Now, everybody, let's go out and change the world. Now, change the world. I would be the sunlight in your universe. You would think my love was something good, only if I could change the world, baby, if I could change the world, baby, yes, yeah, yes. Ooh, yeah, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We are returned to the source. And first you heard Miss Janet Van Klein doing the lead. Next, Miss Jackie Jones. I'm going to introduce the other folks later on, but I just want to say a few words here. Our theme is dedicated, of course, to James Brown, and he was a change agent. A lot of people, when I said we were going to come down here and celebrate James Brown, they thought somebody was going to be up here doing the moonwalk. But no, there's another James Brown, and he's important to us right here in Newark. Now, if you note in the description that's in the biography here, the year 1968, that's important for you to understand. Because you see, James Brown was not altogether welcome doing what he was doing in the library. We had just come out of a rebellion. It was kind of like somebody said, well, okay, go ahead and you do something. Didn't nobody think James Brown was going to do all this. And I think, who was it that said he had a smile, but it was kind of like a smirk? Linda said it was often that. I'd see James, I'd come down here for something academic or otherwise, you know, and he would just be smirking about something that somebody hadn't done right, but he kept going. And that's what this music is about. This is about music from people who kept going. This is African American music, y'all. So that's what we have in common. And all the songs you hear tonight are going to be about people who kept going and produced the most influential music in the world. The first American music. The mayor said you can't have American history without talking about black people. It's all one and the same. And that's one of the contributions, just one of the contributions that we made. So we're going to continue now and go into another era. You're going to hear much of the music that came from, in this particular portion, you're going to hear music that came from our slave ancestors. We're talking about the spirituals, the first American music to come from these shores. And so we're going to give you a little bit of understanding of how this music progressed. You see, it was freedom music back then during the slavery, but a few years later, hundreds of years later to be exact, we had the civil rights movement. And this was the music that the SNCC freedom singers and the CORE and NAACP and all the civil rights groups reached back, got this music, dusted it off a little bit, changed a few words, and this is what we got.
I woke up this morning with my mind stayed on freedom. Oh, I woke up this morning with my mind. I knew it was stayed on freedom. Yeah, I woke up this morning with my mind. Know it was stayed on freedom. Oh, hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. It ain't no harm to have your mind. Stay on freedom. Oh, it ain't no harm to have your mind. Stay on freedom. Well, it ain't no harm to having your mind. Stay on freedom. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Hey.
We gonna walk, 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 walk.
Ooh, yeah.
We gonna walk, walk.
With our mind on freedom, talk, talk,
We gon'
talk, talk,
We gon'
talk, talk. With our mind on freedom, walk and talk,
We gonna
walk and talk,
We gonna
walk and talk. With our mind on freedom, hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. I woke up this morning. I said it was straight on freedom. I woke up this morning with my mind it was stayed. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Hallelujah.
We shall not be moved. We shall not be moved, just like a tree that's standing by the water. We shall not be moved. We're fighting for our freedom. We shall not be moved. We're fighting for our freedom. Oh, we shall not be moved, just like a tree that's standing by the water. We shall not be moved. Segregation is the enemy. It must be removed. Segregation is the enemy. Oh, it must be removed, just like a tree. Just like a tree. Standing by the water. We shall not be moved.
Well, this little light of mine,
Yeah, I'm gonna let it shine. Oh, this little light of mine,
you know
I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine,
hey,
I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
everywhere I go,
Everywhere I go,
everywhere I go,
I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere I go, yeah, yeah, I'm gonna let it shine.
let it shine.
Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
You better
Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
we're gonna
Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
Now, you might have noticed a little something different from the original Freedom Song version because, see, out on the picket line, we didn't have a piano, we didn't have a bass, we didn't have drums. So it was kind of like some of the gospel influence that had come into the music by way of the blues. And so we're going to give you another one of those songs that has been entirely gospelized in our churches today. But there's a little story I wanted you to know because maybe some of you know this. When our slave ancestors were trying to get out of slavery, they did it in one of two ways. They rose up and rebelled or they escaped. And what they did was to have a special coded messages if we were going to escape. They had special coded messages so that the people could know what to do in case they were almost discovered. And so one of those songs was called Wade in the Water. The song was a coded message to get in the water because the dogs that they're going to let loose to find you, dogs can't smell in the water. And so this is what those of us who were still on the plantation would say to you as you getting ready to run with Harriet Tubman. Upgraded version.
Wade in the water, wade in the water, children, wade in the water. God is gonna trouble the water. Wade in the water, wade in the water, children, wade in the water.
God is gonna trouble the water.
See those children dressed in red.
God is gonna trouble the water.
Well, they must be the children that Moses led.
God is gonna trouble the water.
Run on and wade
in the water.
Come on and wade
in the water. Children, wade in the water. God is gonna trouble the water.
See those children dressed in white.
God is gonna trouble the water.
Well, they must be the children of the Israelites.
God is gonna trouble the water.
Come on and come on
in the water.
Why don't you wade
in the water? Children, wade in the water. God is gonna trouble the water.
My God
is gonna trouble the water.
He's gonna trouble the water.
God is gonna trouble the water.
Church. Gotta have church sometime. It might as well be about freedom. Amen. So here's another one from that era, but we kind of changed it a little bit. You're gonna see something a little different than this one too. You see, this music is expansive. That's why everybody copied it. It's all over the world. All over the world. All over the world. Copied it, and in some cases, took it. Just took it. Now, it's all right if they take the music, but we shouldn't be so willing to give it up. Can I get a witness? We are soldiers in the army. We gotta fight. Although we have to die, we got to hold up the blood stain. We gotta hold it up until we die.
We are soldiers in the army. We got to fight, although we have to die. We got to hold up the bloodstained banner. We got to hold it up until we die. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Hand on the freedom ground.
Oh yeah. We are soldiers in the army. We got to fight, although we have to die. We got to hold up the bloodstained banner.
We've got to hold.
We've got to hold up the bloodstained banner. We've got to hold it up until we die.
Check. When we was walking down the street with that freedom beat, went along, came the police. They tried to go up to my head. I ducked and moved instead, but they hit a lot of people. A lot of blood was shed from the corner of my eye. I heard a brother cry. He had a brick in his hand as he ran on by. And with that brick in his hand, he was headed towards the man who brought death and pain up into this land. We had to hold it up. Hold it up until we die. Hey, we had to hold it up. Cause you're really gonna show you have to die. And so I jumped in his back. I said, brother, don't do that. They got too many guns, and that's the real fact. As he dragged me across the ground, chaos all around. Police on horses were knocking people down. But the people didn't run from the Billy Corbin gun. We had the real power. We knew they had none. We had to hold it up. Hold it up until we die. We had to hold it up for Dr. King. We had to hold it up for Malcolm X. We had to hold it up for Vanny Lou. Because they all knew just what to do. And so the mother with the brick saw it didn't fit. You can't throw stones and not get tripped. So he put the brick down, turned and moved around, got back in the line and marched all downtown with the gleam shining in his eye. You can't fight the man unless you organize. 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 When I say James, you say Brown. James, Brown. James, Brown. When I say James, y'all say Brown. James, Brown. James, Brown. You can't fight the man unless you organize.
Julius Williams, ladies and gentlemen.
This is just a little bit of what we do. Turn to the source, and we are happy to be here to celebrate. And the last song we're going to do is also in the blues tradition. Got That Swing, featuring the Ensemble Plus One.
It don't mean a thing if it ain't got that swing. Do I, 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 do I. It don't mean a thing. All you got to do is sing. Do I, 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 do I. Makes no difference if it's sweet or hot.
Sabadoo, 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 da.
Just give that rhythm everything you've got. It don't mean a thing if it ain't got that swing. Do I, 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 do I. Sweet do bop bop shooby dooby doo. Do I, 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 do I. Sweet do bop bop shooby dooby doo. Do I, 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 do I. Makes no difference, sweet or hot. Give that rhythm all you got. Sweet, tap tap, shooby dooby doo. Do I, 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 do I.
Come on, let's get.
Sweet it, sweet, wait, da da, sweet it, sweet, wait, but I, sweet it, sweet it, sweet it, ba ba. Dip 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 ba be dip ba do ba do 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 ba do do so ba do ba de do 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 de. Do I, 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 do I.
Special guest.
Hey.
Hey.
Hey, 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 hey. Let's do this, juniors. Listen, it's the ability to listen, hear what sound like, appreciate what's heard, learn which ones to write the learn about your living, good advice you're good at giving, some of the beginnings make for a better ending. That remind me of a story in the glory moment, how you conquer writer's blocks, just stretch your flowing, remit to the lifetime of and out my rhymes, a time to form a love, but only one truly mine. I zoning days be gone that way, got off for haze now, how we do it when we swing this way, when we swing this way, when we swing this way. Follow me, purple. Say swing. Say swing. Say swing. Say swing. It don't mean a thing, and it don't mean a thing unless you ain't got the swing. Boo da ba da da.
Don't mean a thing if it ain't got that swing. Do I, 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 do I.
Do I,
do I, do I, do I, do I, do I, do I, do I, do I.
sit in it.
Do I, 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 do I. Hey.
Thank you for having us. Let me introduce folks to you. LaShawn Thomas on bass. Sheldon Good Jr. on drums. Jeff Motley on piano. Our music director, Tony Jackson. We've got Janet Van Kine. Returning to us after many years away, Karen Summers. Special guest, Purple Haze. And big time Jay Williams.
Big time.
And yours truly, just a poor country lawyer trying to make it in the big city,
Junius Williams. Junius Williams.
Okay, so where can you go to hear such music other than NJPAC? But Newark Public Library. Thank you very much, Junius. And return to the source for a wonderful presentation. Thank you all for coming to our grand opening celebration of the James Brown African American Room. We appreciate that very much. This has been an extremely memorable event. James Brown. What a man, what a life, what a legacy. If you'd like to contribute to help us sustain the wonderful work that's going on here in this program and in this James Brown's room, please take one of the envelopes on your way out, fill it out, and send it back. Thank you again for coming tonight. Have a wonderful evening.
Okay, so tonight they opened the James Brown Room tonight, and it was a very exciting night. I got to meet a lot of important people, and it felt very good. The energy is very good tonight. As you can see, artists came out tonight, and they were able to display their work. So there was a lot of exciting things going on tonight. Also, I want to let a lot of people know that I have a cleaning company. It's called On Spot. I'm a young entrepreneur in the city of Newark. So this was a very good experience for me. As a black male, I feel very empowered and I feel very important. So I don't know if we have any questions tonight, but yes, thank you and have a great year.
Just a fabulous event. Music was wonderful. It was great to hear people's recollections about James Brown and the contribution that he made to this city. And it's a great tribute to have a James Brown room. People need to come in and see these banners. They're fantastic.
So today was absolutely wonderful. It's been a long time coming, and I'm sure the friends and many Norkers are really excited to see this room and honor James Brown. His legacy definitely lives on in this room, and you can feel it. I never had the pleasure of knowing him, but as a staff member, I am so honored to be a part of this and his legacy and dedicate my work to African Americans as well as the African diaspora. So I just look forward to years to come of making memories and sharing our history and spreading love to our community in this room and carrying on James Brown's legacy.
I'm new to the area, and this is my first time at an event in the Newark Public Library, and I had a very good time, and I hope to come to very many more events.
This night was a very wonderful tribute to James Brown. I've known him in his day for many years. He was the first to come on board when we started the Newark Black Film Festival. You would see James walk down the street with all the brochures all the time. He never was without. He wanted everybody in the city to know what was going on in the city. So if he didn't have a brochure with him, there was something wrong. So everybody looked for him in his suits, his bow ties, his ties. He was wonderful. We all loved him. We had a good time on the Black Film Festival planning for the next years, and we are in our 45th year of the Newark Black Film Festival. And during James' lifetime of the festival, he was on that committee, and we still honor him to today. Thank you.
I came on board with James Brown African American Room in 2005. My supervisors were my predecessors who carried the torch of what James Brown had started. You know, they carried the essence. They built up the reference collection and stuff. And I grew up with that in the library. And after they retired, I tried to carry it on. So I tried to maintain the James Brown African American Room during this transition to its new location. And that wasn't easy. We went through downsizing and furlough days and stuff like that. We went from a 6-person staff to just a 1-person staff. And I hung on for dear life to keep the room going. And now it's been moved into a brand new area. I wasn't that happy at first when they moved to James Brown Room, but the amenities that they've added the reference computers, they've added the online computers, and I feel a little bit better about it now. I feel a little bit better about the room now. I'm very grateful to be a part of it. My bachelor's degree is in African and African American studies. So my old supervisor used to laugh because I read just about every book on the shelves in my classes. I took up everything African American. I wish it well. I wish this new room well. I wish it has the feeling and emotions of the other room, you know. I think it will do well. They worked very hard on it, and I'm proud to be a member of it. Thank you.